Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're looking at two technologies that could, and I mean literally, alter life as we know it on Earth. Think of them as our new titans, immensely powerful and, well, they're just beginning to stir. Okay, so let's just dive right into this. Ask yourself that question, because this isn't science fiction anymore. We're talking about two very real, very powerful emerging fields, artificial intelligence and geoengineering. They promise to solve some of humanity's biggest, thorniest challenges, but, and it's a big but, they also carry planet-sized risks. So on one hand, you've got AI, the power to create and manipulate intelligence itself. And on the other, you've got geoengineering, the power to literally reshape our planet's climate. They both represent this fundamental trade-off, right? They offer these incredible, almost utopian solutions, but they're hiding these profound and totally unpredictable dangers just beneath the surface. To really get a handle on what's at stake here, let's start by looking at the bright side. The incredible potential. And we're going to kick things off with the revolutionary power that AI is already bringing to the world of medicine. You see, for decades, developing new drugs has been getting slower and more expensive. It's a problem so well known, it actually has a name, Room's law. And yep, that's Moore's law spelled backwards. But AI is starting to completely reverse that trend, turning months, sometimes even years, of tedious lab work into just a few hours of computation. And it works kind of like this. First, an AI sifts through absolute mountains of biological data to find the perfect target for a disease. Then, and this is the wild part, it actually designs brand new molecules from scratch to hit that target. This whole process allowed a startup like Insilico to go from just an idea to a drug that's ready for human trials at a truly record-breaking speed. Now, to put that number into perspective, the traditional way of doing this takes, on average, nearly a decade and costs billions. Billions with a B. Insilico did it in just a year and a half for a tiny fraction of the cost. This isn't just a small improvement. It is a totally different way of discovering medicine. It's a game changer. And of course, this potential stretches way beyond the lab. It's exactly why we're seeing this massive wave of investment across the board, with companies basically racing to plug AI into everything, from boosting economic productivity to developing the next generation of national security tools. Okay, now let's switch gears to our other titan, geoengineering. Its promise is honestly just as profound. We're talking about a direct intervention to cool the entire planet, which could give us a crucial lifeline to manage the effects of climate change while we get on with the really hard work of cutting emissions. So the leading idea here is called solar geoengineering. The concept is to inject these shiny, reflective particles high up into the stratosphere. Essentially, we'd be creating a kind of planetary sunshade, reflecting a tiny, tiny fraction of sunlight back into space to cool the Earth. In a world that's struggling to meet its climate goals, you can see how this might be a powerful tool to prevent the absolute worst consequences of a warming planet. But, and you knew there was a but coming, here's the pivots. This immense power to heal and to protect comes with an equally immense potential for things to go terribly, horribly wrong. With both of these titans, the risks are just as big as the rewards. Let's start with AI. The first, and maybe most immediate risk, is its absolutely staggering appetite for energy. The scale is just hard to wrap your head around. By 2026, the data centers that power our AI models could be consuming as much electricity as the entire nation of Japan. That is a colossal environmental footprint. And beyond its power use, AI presents a whole minefield of societal challenges. We're already seeing malicious deepfakes spreading disinformation, a huge flood of copyright lawsuits from artists and writers, and there's a growing concern that this investment craze is a bubble just waiting to pop. Some are even calling it plain crazy. Geoengineering, meanwhile, well, it has its own dark history. Back during the Vietnam War, the US military ran something called Project Popeye. They used cloud seeding to try and extend the monsoon season over enemy supply routes. It was a pretty crude attempt to weaponize the weather, and it serves as this really stark warning about how these powerful environmental tools can be misused. The risks today are just as profound, maybe even more so. Altering the atmosphere could have totally unpredictable impacts on global weather patterns and ecosystems. Then there's the moral hazard, the fear that if we have a planetary thermostat, countries might just stop trying so hard to cut their emissions. And maybe the biggest question of all, who gets to control that thermostat? So all this brings us to the core dilemma, right? We've unleashed two technologies that could solve our biggest problems, or they could create entirely new crises that might be even worse. You know, the central problem that connects both AI and geoengineering is something experts call a governance void. And put simply, it just means the science and the technology are moving at lightning speed, while the rules, the regulations, and the international agreements we need to manage them are lagging way, way behind. And look, regulators are trying to catch up. We see efforts like the EU's AI Act and big discussions happening at the UN. But the reality is, for every single answer they manage to come up with, the technology itself poses 10 new questions. They are playing a game of catch-up that, right now, they are losing. So what you should really take away from all this is that it's not an on or off switch. We can't just ban these things and hope they go away. The real challenge is to find a path forward, to build the guardrails, the international agreements, and the ethical frameworks that let us benefit from all that incredible promise while containing the immense peril. And that leaves us with the ultimate question. As we unleash these world-changing forces, who is actually in the driver's seat? How do we, as a global community, build a steering wheel and a set of brakes for these things? Because we have to make sure that these titans guide us toward that better future, and not right over a cliff.
Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today, we're plunging into two technologies that are, well, they're not just buzzwords, they're genuine game changers reshaping our future: artificial intelligence and geoengineering. These aren't just concepts floating around, they're real forces. And we're going to explore their incredible potential, but also, frankly, their very real dangers.
Exactly. Our mission today is really to cut through all the hype, and the noise. We're going to sift through your sources, pulling out the most important insights we can find. We'll look at the revolutionary opportunities these technologies present for tackling some of humanity's biggest challenges, but also, critically, the substantial risks that demand our careful attention and, let's be honest, robust governance. By the end of this deep dive, you should have a clearer picture of what's possible and what's truly at stake.
Okay, let's unpack this then, starting with artificial intelligence, or AI. When we talk about AI's revolutionary potential, where are we seeing the most immediate and profound impact? Where are the aha moments happening right now?
Well, one of the most striking areas, and this emerges directly from your sources, is how AI is directly confronting some of our really long-standing problems. Take drug development, for instance. For years, the pharmaceutical industry has been battling something called Eram's Law. It's more spelled backward. It basically describes how the cost of developing new drug just keeps rising, even as the rate of actual drug discovery slows down.
Right, I've heard of that. Costs go up, results go down. Not ideal.
Not ideal at all. But AI is poised to, well, utterly revolutionize this. By analyzing these vast, disparate data sets, AI can dramatically enhance researchers' understanding of diseases. It can pinpoint promising molecules with much greater accuracy and even fine-tune their structures for human trials. And what's truly groundbreaking, I think, is generative AI. This type of AI can create entirely new, novel molecules for researchers to test. It just dramatically expands the possibilities.
That sounds incredibly promising, almost like something out of science fiction finally coming true. But how much of this is still, theoretical? Do your sources offer concrete examples of these breakthroughs already in action?
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely not just theoretical anymore. Consider breakthroughs like AlphaFold 2 back in 2020, and its even more powerful successor, AlphaFold 3, which was released just this past May. These AI systems can accurately predict protein structures and other molecular structures, too. They reduce months of painstaking trial and error lab experiments down to mere hours of computation.
Hours instead of months.
Exactly. It's not just speeding things up, it's fundamentally changing the whole game. And we're seeing tangible results.
Yeah.
Your sources mention one startup, in silico. They used AI to identify a drug target and then design a suitable molecule for human trials in, get this, an astonishing 18 months.
18 months, that's remarkable.
It is. And at a cost of just $2.7 million, which is, a tiny fraction of the usual time and expense. And this isn't an isolated case. Approximately 65 AI-inspired molecules are currently in human trials. Some are even expected to advance to phase 3 trials as early as 2025. It's also being deployed in advanced areas like cancer vaccine development, helping predict immune-stimulating markers.
So medicine is clearly being transformed. That's huge. But what do your sources reveal about AI's impacts beyond healthcare, maybe in the broader economy or even our daily routines, things we might not expect?
Well, the impact really does extend across pretty much the entire economic landscape. It's quite pervasive. Your sources highlight the sheer velocity of capital pouring into AI right now. We're seeing IT spending projected to rise to an incredible $3.6 trillion in 2025. And about 30% of large American firms are expected to invest $10 million or more in AI just next year alone.
Wow, that's serious investment.
It is. And this is more than just business spreadsheets. AI is increasingly seen as crucial for national prosperity and military security. Think adding a new layer of intelligence to drone systems, for example. On a more day-to-day level, AI is streamlining countless business processes, things like text rewriting, report generation. It's significantly boosting efficiency, even if, apparently, some employees are using these powerful tools kind of in secret.
Huh, I can believe that. Using ChatGPT under the radar?
Something like that, yeah. And in entertainment, it's accelerating complex production processes, like storyboarding, scripting. It's even creating virtual actors for these sort of microdramas. And then looking ahead to 2025, we have these agentic AI systems on the horizon.
Agented AI, what does that mean exactly?
Think of these as AI programs that can autonomously break down complex goals into smaller steps. They can plan their own actions and then execute them, almost like a digital project manager, you could say.
Okay, so more autonomy, more complex tasks.
Precisely. And they promise to further accelerate AI adoption across all sorts of industries. It really touches almost everything.
That's a really powerful overview of AI's burgeoning potential. It spans everything from saving lives to, well, reshaping creative industries. Now let's pivot a bit. Let's talk about geoengineering. This concept, I mean, it can sound almost like something out of a science fiction novel, right? Yet your sources suggest it offers significant tangible opportunities for addressing one of our biggest global challenges, climate change.
It does sound dramatic, you're absolutely right. But the opportunities are very real, especially when you consider the accelerating climate crisis we're facing. Solar geoengineering specifically offers a potential method to cool the planet. How? By reflecting incoming sunlight back into space.
Reflecting sunlight, how would that work?
Research suggests that injecting tiny reflective particles, think of creating a very fine aerosol layer, like a very thin engineered cloud, high up in the stratosphere.
Yeah.
That could be a feasible way to reflect a small percentage of incoming sunlight back out, thereby slowing, or maybe even halting, global temperature rises. It's a bit like giving the Earth a temporary adjustable sunshade.
A planetary sunshade. Okay. And why is this considered so critical now? I mean, we are working on reducing emissions, aren't we? Isn't that enough?
That's a really crucial question. And the difficult reality is that traditional emissions reductions, while absolutely vital, absolutely necessary for the long term,
Yeah.
they may not show their full cooling effect for decades. There's a lag time. Geoengineering could potentially play a critical, albeit probably temporary, role in mitigating rapidly rising temperatures now and mitigating their severe immediate consequences.
Gotcha.
Well, we're talking about intensifying heat waves, widespread droughts, devastating crop failures, accelerating sea level rise, things happening already. Geoengineering, proponents argue, offers a way to buy valuable time, potentially preventing some of those catastrophic near-term impacts while the world transitions, hopefully, to a carbon-neutral economy.
Okay. Buying time. But given the inherently global nature of fiddling with the atmosphere, it seems like international discussion and cooperation would be absolutely paramount. Is there any existing framework, anything that could serve as a starting point for this conversation?
That's a great point, and it brings up something interesting from your sources. They suggest the ENMOGRE Convention, that's the Environmental Modification Convention. It was initially designed back in the 70s to prevent hostile environmental modification, like weather warfare. But its signatories are committed to international economic and scientific cooperation in the preservation, improvement, and peaceful utilization of the environment, with due consideration for the needs of the developing areas of the world.
So an old treaty aimed at preventing harm might actually provide a basis for discussing potential help.
Potentially, yes, it's an existing framework, even if imperfect. The UN Secretary-General in particular is seen as being in a unique position to maybe initiate such a global conversation. The ENMOD Convention provides at least a foundational starting point for discussions on environmental interventions of this scale.
Right. Okay, so we've painted this picture of incredible promise for both AI and geoengineering. Huge potential. But as with any transformative technology, there's always a shadow side, isn't there? A downside. What do your sources identify as the most pressing, maybe even unexpected risks and challenges emerging with AI?
Well, one particularly striking point right off the bat is just the sheer scale of the resource constraints. It's kind of mind-blowing. Training these large AI models demands truly immense amounts of energy. For example, your sources mentioned that training GPT-4 alone could have powered 5,000 American homes for an entire year.
5,000 homes for a year, just to train one model.
Just one model's training run, yes. And data centers' power requirements are surging at an alarming rate. Some need between 300 to 500 megawatts. That's power plant territory. Projections indicate that global power consumption, just from data centers, could more than double by 2026, reaching maybe 1,000 terawatt hours.
Which is how much?
An amount equivalent to Japan's total electricity consumption, the entire country. It's a stark reminder, isn't it, that even seemingly digital advancements have a very real, very physical footprint. It certainly gives one pause to consider the environmental trade-offs involved here.
That's staggering, truly mind-boggling amounts of power. Are there other resource bottlenecks, maybe on the data side or hardware? Could those slow this AI sprint?
Yes, absolutely. Beyond energy, there's a looming shortage of high-quality textual training data, the stuff these models learn from. It's estimated to essentially run out, believe it or not, by 2028.
Run out of text. On the internet.
High-quality, usable text for training state-of-the-art models, yes. Oh, we might hit a wall there. And then on the hardware front, we've seen engineering snags in producing the most advanced AI chips. And there could be shortages of things like high bandwidth memory and advanced packaging.
Okay, explain those a bit. Why are they crucial?
They're essential specialized components. High bandwidth memory lets the chips access data incredibly quickly, and advanced packaging allows multiple chips and components to be integrated very densely, boosting performance. Think of them as the super efficient fuel lines for these AI powerhouses. So shortages there are not minor hurdles. They represent fundamental bottlenecks for continued rapid AI development.
Got it. So resource constraints are a major physical challenge. But beyond that, we often hear about the ethical and societal concerns with AI, especially around truth and trust in our digital world. What are the most urgent challenges there, according to your sources?
Yeah, this is a big one. It immediately brings to mind the issue of trust and truth in the digital age, as you said. AI can be used to create deepfakes. That's where a person's likeness is convincingly inserted into photos or videos, often for malicious purposes.
Right, we've seen examples. Scary stuff.
It can lead to harassment, theft of celebrity likenesses for unauthorized ads, things like that, and even sophisticated AI-powered disinformation campaigns targeting politicians and public figures, potentially influencing elections. Then there's the significant and growing issue of copyright infringement.
Ah, yes, the lawsuits.
Exactly. Generative AI companies are facing numerous lawsuits. Why? For using copyrighted material, art, text, code without permission to train their models. Now, fair use defenses have seen some success in U.S. courts, but it's still very contested. Britain's copyright law is stricter, and you have claims like Getty Images suing Stability AI for trademark infringement, too. So it's complex.
So what's the likely outcome there?
The expectation, according to your sources, is a sort of race to the middle in regulation. Tech firms will likely be required to allow copyright holders to opt out of having their work used for training. And they'll need to develop AI tools that avoid simply regurgitating copyrighted material verbatim.
Makes sense. Okay, and economically. All this massive investment, this hype, is it actually delivering in the real world yet? Or is there a disconnect?
That's a fascinating question. If we connect this to the bigger economic picture, despite the massive investment and widespread excitement, your sources point out something quite stark. AI has shown almost no impact on America's economy so far, at least in the macro statistics.
Really? No impact? With all that money flowing in?
Well, the stats show low unemployment, yes, but surprisingly weak productivity growth, which is where you'd expect AI to make a difference eventually. And only about 5–6% of American businesses openly state they actually use AI in their products and services right now.
Only 5–6%? That seems low.
It does. And Gartner, the tech research firm, predicts that a significant 30% of generative AI projects will actually fail to even pass the proof of concept stage. Why? Due to daunting costs and uncertain benefits, few AI startups are currently profitable, which raises genuine concerns of maybe an untenable disparity between the investor enthusiasm and the real-world business reality.
So maybe a bubble, or just growing pains.
It could be either or both. It certainly suggests a tension between market speculation and tangible economic impact right now, or perhaps just a longer lag time for adoption than many people anticipate.
Okay, so it sounds like there are a lot of really complex questions here for regulators and policymakers to grapple with, given both the promise and all these pitfalls.
Absolutely. And regulators worldwide are, as your sources put it, circling AI. They're trying to get ahead of the curve, or at least catch up. We're seeing parts of the EU's Comprehensive AI Act taking effect in 2025. The African Union is actively working to forge a common AI strategy for the continent, but the technology just keeps generating more questions than regulators can realistically answer. It's a significant governance challenge.
And then there's the whole geopolitical angle, too.
Oh, definitely. There's intensifying geopolitical competition. Western countries are deeply concerned that China will leverage AI to gain military and economic advantage. This has prompted efforts like American export controls on cutting-edge AI chips, which in turn spurs Chinese engineers to innovate around those constraints. It creates this really dynamic and, frankly, tense global technological race.
Okay, that's a very comprehensive look at AI's double-edged sword. Incredible potential, serious challenges. Now, let's turn that same lens back to geoengineering. What are the major risks and challenges here? Because, I mean, tampering with the Earth's climate on a global scale, it just feels inherently risky.
You're right to feel that way. It's a profound concern. And the risks are significant, potentially even terrifying. While it offers a potential solution, or maybe a stopgap for climate change, geoengineering carries these huge risks. The most concerning are probably the unforeseen environmental impacts. We just don't know everything.
What kind of impacts are we talking about?
Well, solar geoengineering could have widespread physical, chemical, and biological effects far beyond just lowering the temperature. We're talking about potentially altering global hydrological cycles. That means shifts in rainfall patterns.
So droughts in some places, floods in others.
Exactly. It could change the chemistry of the upper atmosphere in ways we don't fully understand yet, maybe affecting the ozone layer. It could even impact the rate of photosynthesis, which affects plant growth and therefore entire ecosystems, including agriculture. The sheer complexity of Earth's systems means that a seemingly simple intervention just reflecting a bit more sunlight could have a cascade of unintended, potentially devastating consequences.
Right. The law of unintended consequences writ large. And how would we even begin to govern such a powerful global intervention? Who gets to decide if we do it? How much? What if nations disagree violently?
This leads us directly to the profound question of governance and control. It's maybe the hardest part. Such schemes, once started, would likely be much easier to initiate and escalate than to counteract or safely reverse. The level of modification, how much sunlight gets reflected, could ultimately be dictated by the country or a group of countries with the greatest desire or perceived need for it.
Which sounds like a recipe for conflict.
It could easily lead to intense international disputes, diplomatic interventions, or even, frighteningly, the use of force to stop or impose a certain level of geoengineering. And then there's also a significant moral hazard at play.
Moral hazard, meaning?
Meaning the risk that the very existence of geoengineering solutions, or even just this serious discussion of them, could lead many countries to ease off on emissions reduction. Why bother with the hard work of cutting carbon if there's this technological fix waiting in the wings? This would effectively increase reliance on these inherently risky technologies and exacerbate their dangers, rather than addressing the root cause of climate change, which is greenhouse gas emissions.
So it could actually undermine efforts to solve the underlying problem. It sounds like we're discussing a technology with truly global implications, potentially planet-altering, yet without a clear international framework to manage it. What do your sources say about that governance void?
That's precisely the issue. Existing international bodies, like the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, the UNFCCC, the main forum for climate negotiations, they simply were not designed to address something as radical and complex as solar geoengineering. And frankly, they've shown very little interest in adapting to this task so far, which leaves a critical void for these absolutely essential global discussions.
So no one's really in charge or even setting the rules.
Pretty much. And it's helpful here, maybe sobering, to consider the historical precedent of misuse. Your sources mention past attempts at environmental modification, like Project Popeye. That was America and Vietnam during the war, using cloud seeding techniques to try and prolong the monsoon season over supply routes for military purposes.
Using weather as a weapon.
Essentially, yes. It highlighted the dangers of deliberately using environmental modification techniques having widespread, long-lasting, or severe effects to cause harm. This led directly to that INAMO treaty we mentioned earlier, back in 1977, prohibiting such hostile uses. Now, the climate crisis is obviously different. The intent isn't hostile in the same way. But this history underscores the potential for grave consequences, intended or not, and the absolute urgent need for robust, internationally agreed-upon governance before anyone deploys something like this.
Wow. Okay. So, bring this all together, what does this mean for you, our listener? We've just taken a really deep dive into two monumental and incredibly complex areas, AI and geoengineering.
Yeah, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, what we see is that both AI and geoengineering represent humanity's incredible capacity for innovation. They really do. They offer truly transformative solutions to some of our most pressing global challenges, disease, climate change. Yet they both arrive with this critical caveat. Their immense power is matched, maybe even exceeded, by the magnitude of their risks. Our sources make it abundantly clear that the speed of technological advancement is far outpacing our ability to create thoughtful, effective governance and ethical frameworks to manage it.
The tech is racing ahead, and the rules are lagging way behind.
Exactly. This isn't just about what the technology can do anymore. It's about what we should do and how we ensure humanity remains firmly in control of its own creations, steering them towards benefit, not disaster.
What a deep dive indeed. We've uncovered the incredible promise of AI in drug development, economic growth, even daily life and entertainment, and geoengineering's potential, however fraught, to offer a temporary cooling shield for our warming planet. But we've also squarely faced the daunting risks. For AI, massive energy consumption, ethical nightmares like deepfakes and copyright chaos, the intense geopolitical chess match. And for geoengineering, the specter of unforeseen environmental impacts, potential governance nightmares, conflict, and that profound moral hazard of sidestepping the core problem of emissions reductions.
Ultimately, you're right. These technologies are powerful tools. And like any tool, their future impact hinges entirely on how we choose to wield them, collectively. The knowledge